Hi everyone, my name is Laura Einsetler and I'm a captain here at the major U.S. carriers. I'm also a mother of two amazing children. I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, a sister, a friend, a book writer. I'm also a TV and media aviation spokesperson. I have a blog, captainlaura.com, that you can come visit and check out some great flying facts and tips and information to make your travel even better. I wrote this book, Remove Before Flight, for passengers to feel more empowered and more knowledgeable when they take to the skies. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about myself and my history, just some, and also give you 5 gemstones of wisdom to share with you today. So let's start off with Barbies. I wasn't a fan. When I was growing up, my girlfriends and I would strip these Barbies down, twist them up like pretzels, and we would hide them around the neighborhood. We'd play hide and go seek and try to figure out where the crazy, twisty pretzel Barbies are. So needless to say, I loved race cars. So speed for me was the ticket, and I always asked for the newest, greatest race car tracks and the kind of race cars where you can fill them up, fuel them up, and then they would just go with the headlights and everything. I also loved big wheels, mongoose bikes, football. Even though I wasn't allowed to play football, I did do some cheerleading that way because I love to dance, but being able to cheer for my team. One of my stepdads was a ski patrolman, and I was able to fall in love with downhill ski racing, which really fit the bill for the speed love. So I loved it. I wanted to be an Olympic snow ski downhill racer, and that was my plan. But then what happened? Parents split. There went that goal. No longer was I going to be an Olympic snow skier. So now I had to decide what it is that I want to do. And so midway through high school, the teacher started asking, do you want chemistry or do you want physics? Who wants those? I said, no thanks, not interested, don't want to do them. But I realized pretty soon that I had to make a decision about what it was that I wanted to do so that I wouldn't waste time on classes that I wouldn't use for a future career. So I made a list. I knew I wanted to travel. I wanted to go places and meet different people, work in the outdoors, and be able to preferably pay my bills. So I made a list of things that would fit that bill. So I came up with cruise ship director, park ranger, Club Med resort hostess, flight attendant, and I loved science and math. So I was pretty strong in STEM, and I wanted to be able to use those skills as well for my future job. So nothing just felt like that was the right thing to do. So a friend of mine said, well, why don't you be a pilot? And I thought, that sounds really cool, but I've never seen a girl pilot before. So this was, of course, over 30 years ago also. So I went to my career center counselor and asked, what's the deal about this pilot thing? And so they said, well, women just don't realize it's an opportunity for them to be able to be a pilot. So you can go the civilian route or the military route. So boy, I was so stoked. So I got home, called my dad on the phone in Southern California and said, Dad, so excited, I think I want to be a pilot. And my dad said, well, Laura, girls don't fly. So a little underwhelming. And then I went to my mom, I want to be a pilot, Mom. And Mom said, well, I can't afford flying lessons, and it's probably just a phase that you're going through anyway, you'll get over it. Well, I didn't. So I worked 3 jobs, paid for my first flying lessons, and I was hooked. The thrill of operating that piece of machinery, being able to see everything from above, so the houses, the cars, the people, everything, the tapestry looked like Legoland down there, and it was such an awesome challenge and so exciting. So I fell in love with aviation. My nickname went from Ski Bunny to Fly Bunny by my best friend. So I want to start with gemstone number 1, which is support. So I would not be here today talking to you if it wasn't for my best friends that were always there for me, that anytime things were tough, were able to pick me up, dust me off, and push me back out there. So we all need mentors and support systems to be able to help support us in those times of need. So I was accepted to the Air Force Academy. I wanted to go to the best of the best. I had a congressional nomination and I was going to the Air Force Academy. And I said, you can guarantee that I'm going to fly airplanes, right? And they said, nope, we can't guarantee that. So I wasn't willing to make that risk of the commitment in time if I wasn't going to be able to fly airplanes. So I withdrew my acceptance and had to kind of change plans. So I kept working my 3 jobs, flying the airplanes. I soloed when on my 16th birthday. I got my private pilot license just after my 17th birthday, which was the minimum time frame. Soon thereafter, I left home and I was totally on my own. I lived in downtown Stockton with one of my girlfriends, and that in itself was quite an adventure every day. And so I went to community college, kept paying for my flying lessons, and eventually I was able to get full financial aid for a university called Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, which is the Harvard of the skies. So I was so excited and thrilled to go. So that leads me into gemstone number 2, which is leadership. I learned early on when I got to the university that if I didn't speak up and say what's on my mind and put myself out there, that I was just going to get rolled over. So I decided I really have to do this. Leadership takes practice. And I was going to push myself out there in all kinds of uncomfortable situations so that I can get out there and affect some positive change. So a lot of our classes at the university, we had oral presentations, and that helped things. I was also on the flight team. So I was the only female pilot on a team of 40. Worked my butt off that year, qualified to be able to go to nationals, and was told, well, we just don't have the budget to have an extra room for a female. So pretty soon thereon, I quit the flight team and I became the president of the 99s, which is the women aviators. So I was able to make some great friendships, and we had a blast that year, just really doing all kinds of things with the university and the communities. I also worked in the admissions office, and I was also working in the mailroom. And what a lot of people didn't know was that sometimes, I didn't have the extra money, and sometimes the money just wasn't there. So I would have to hitchhike to and from school. I would have to steal food sometimes just to be able to stay in the courses and finish up. So I was the happiest graduate of my class, let me just tell you. So after that, because of those things, I wanted to be able to have a job right after graduation. So I sent out 200 applications. I knew I had to have a job because I couldn't even live in my car because I didn't have one. So I wanted to come back out to California. And so put out the resumes. I got a job with this great flight school, Tradewinds Aviation, in San Jose International Airport in California. And it was a great experience. I taught all different levels of flying. And because of my leadership skills and ability at that point, I decided, okay, well, I'm going to teach all the ground schools. I want to teach as many ground schools as I can, a room full of people, and so that I could then have some continuous flow of students also to fly with. So you can just imagine, I'm 23 years old, my big blonde ponytail and my braces, telling these CEOs and CFOs of Silicon Valley, did you study chapter 4? You need to come prepared because now you're performing for me and you're not going to go kill yourself in an airplane on my watch. So I had to be tough and kind of push past through that and get everybody safely flying on their way. So that's how things are done in aviation, I said. So gemstone number 3 is perseverance. So I always had my eye on the ball. Always had the target in mind. I would post up my goals and things all around. A lot of my friends had posters of, different, Sean Cassidy and Def Leppard and Van Halen, things like that. I always had airplanes posted up all around my room. And the most that I had was the SR-71 spy plane, which was my absolute favorite jet. And there was a little poster on the side of Andy Gibb, just saying. So if you stay on target, even though there's going to be some bad days and some good days, my philosophy was as long as we're always on a positive trajectory, we're always going up, always, achieving our goals upward and onward. And so after I was flight instructing for a while, I applied to an airline that does military contracts. So after all, I was able to get hired on, get trained by the military, have military contract experience, and that was fantastic. It was a great job. Half of the ground school washed out, and so I was able to actually upgrade pretty quickly to captain. And I think that probably was because my positive attitude, my professionalism, skill, and experience. And I also was involved in air shows. I did aerobatic flying and became a director of operations for who is now one of my best girlfriends. And love doing the air show scene, love doing aerobatics. I do miss flying the aerobatics right now. And probably you wouldn't appreciate it if I took you for a spin in the Boeing anyways, nor would my airline. So we'll just keep that to the side. So during that time, I was able to also upgrade really quickly into a civilian P3. I was the only female in the company, female pilot, and I was the first female pilot to upgrade ever on the L-188 Lockheed Electra, which is the civilian P3. So we were able to do international flying and cargo and charter also, in addition to the military contracts. And one time when I was in Cologne, Germany, that was one of my runs. From Cologne, Germany to Dublin, Ireland to Shannon, Ireland. I was standing there one night, drinking my coffee, and I realized, so I have a load master, and the load master is in charge of making sure that the 4,200 pound pallets all got loaded on properly and were secured in the airplane. I had a flight engineer who was doing the walkarounds and making sure the airplane was fine. Had a mechanic in the jump seat, and the mechanic would sign off the logbook and had the spare parts and the tools ready to rock and roll. And the first officer, the co-pilot, would follow the flight plans and make sure that everything was all set for our route to go. So I said to the guys one night, after finally being named Captain Princess, I said, so let me get this straight. So you guys are doing all these things and I'm the captain, and so what am I supposed to be doing right now? And they said, well, Laura, you just stand there, look cute, and drink your coffee. So I did, and loved that job. So that was my experience there. And so for me, it was the airlines are bust. There was a specific airline that I absolutely wanted to work for, so I just kept pestering them every 6 months, and that's the Perseverance. So to be able to even apply to the major airlines, you have to have a 4-year college education, you have to have at least 8 years of flying experience, and usually that starts off with, no matter if it's military or civilian, you start off in smaller airplanes, and you work your way up to bigger airplanes that are more complex, crew-based situations, and also more complex operations. So you build your experience that way, and you become a captain, pilot in command. Then at that point, if your record's clean, everything's good, then you can apply to the airlines. And at the time that I was applying, there was only about 2 out of every 10 to 12 that they were selecting, even from the interview process. And of course, then there's a simulator test and the medical test and everything. So I was able to get hired on, and gemstone number 4, Resiliency. So this is tough for me to say. Many people ask me, have I had challenges in my life? And I absolutely have had many challenges in my life. I will tell you that I have been raped, I have been sexually assaulted, I have been randomly felt up at least 20 different times. I've been masturbated next to randomly a couple times. I've been violently threatened and attacked about 8 different times. I've been cheated on, lied to. I've been told at least 100 different times and 100 different ways how I shouldn't be flying airplanes or flipping houses or able to heal my critically ill son. But for those people that think, okay, you should be home barefoot and pregnant, and have said that to me, I just want to say, here's the news flash, that I've been there, done that, and I rocked that too. So I will just tell you that I had no choice. I had to be resilient because I wanted to be here today, to be able to talk to you, to raise my children, to write these books, to be on TV and media, and to be able to share a lot of good stuff and help empower you. So that's I'm here. If for every time things were tough and bad, I dove headlong into a bowl of cocoa pebbles and never to return. I wouldn't be able to be here type rated on a 767, a 757, an A320, a 737, and to be able to do all these things. So you have to push back because otherwise they win, and you can't let them do that. You got to keep pushing forward. So I will tell you what it's like to fly these amazing airplanes. I wish so much I can show you the beautiful things that we see from the cockpit. I mean, the sights that we see are absolutely amazing, and we're unable to show that because of course we're in operation at that time when we're flying. But it's just, I'm awestruck every time I fly to see the beauty of Mother Nature and what our world looks like. It's just incredible. And to be able to actually operate, and yes, we do fly the airplanes, by the way, we don't just push buttons, we fly the airplanes. To be able to operate these airplanes, the $150 million jets, and have that challenge and that excitement for us and the rush of the speed when we're landing at about 250 miles an hour near the ground, it's so exciting. And to be able to take passengers and people from point A to point B to where they want to be on time, safely, and get them on their way to enjoy their life events. I'm so honored, so blessed to be able to do those things. So yeah, there are challenges sometimes. There's a lot of pressure on us because everybody wants to go. And so sometimes that's what we get paid for, those really tough decisions. When we're flying and things are falling, we have mechanical problems on the airplane, and the weather's bad and we're in the terrain, it's middle of the night, we're in an unfamiliar place and have a passenger medical issue or things like that. So that's where we really earn our money and have those challenges. And so I just want to tell you that when we work together as a crew, and it's a real teamwork, so in those crises, when we're in the sky and we have a lot to handle and we're both maxed out up there, and we're working with the dispatchers, and we're working with the mechanics, and we're working with air traffic control, and we're working with each other, and we're working with the flight attendants, and we're talking to you as the passengers. And sometimes when everybody works together like that, it's such a beautiful thing. It's like a well-oiled machine, and a fine dance and an orchestra, and we're able to safely get everybody to where they need to be. And then you feel like, yes, awesome, we did that. So I just want to say, this just happened to me the other day, and this happens pretty regularly, I'll just say, is that I was standing there in full uniform saying goodbye to the passengers, as I like to do, to show you how much we appreciate you traveling with us. And there was a man that was getting off the airplane, and he kept kind of doing this and looking around me, and then he made the comment, excuse me, I'm trying to tell the captain that I want to thank them for such a great landing. And so I didn't say anything. The flight attendant said, sir, she is the captain. And I wish I had a camera in that moment to just capture the look on his face as he registered that I was the captain and I had just flown us in. And so there was a time, another story to just tell you, we were coming in one time. I was a first officer on this flight. We were flying from Denver into Ontario. And we do take turns flying the airplane. So sometimes the co-pilot's flying, sometimes the captain's flying. Whoever's not flying is doing the radios with air traffic control, the PA announcements, and the checklists. And so in this case, it was my leg. I hadn't seen my family in a few years. I was going to see my dad and my awesome half-sisters and my great siblings and everything. And I was so excited to see them. And this was at the time when they could meet at the gate. So they were waiting there for me at the gate. And we were coming in from Denver, and the winds, the Santa Ana winds that we get here in Southern California, can be crazy. So the Santa Ana winds were kicking up, and they were stronger and building and stronger and building. We were coming down through, and I said, Captain, it's really strong, crazy strong winds. Do you want to take the jet? And he said, Laura, so what makes you think that I would do a better job than you? And that is a true leader right there. And I just said, well, I don't, but you are the captain, and so it's your call if you want to take the jet. He said, nope, you're going to rock this thing. So I said, okay. So the plan is we're going to give it one try into Ontario, and if we can't do it, then we'll divert over to LAX. So in the meantime, FedEx, the cargo carrier, FedEx went around. Southwest had called and said toward air traffic control, super crazy, moderate to severe turbulence. So if Southwest was saying that, that was some serious winds. So we were coming down thinking, oh my gosh, okay. So I was riding the bucking bronco at that point. So I call it full body flying. So it was like where you're just one with the jet. The jet is just strapped on and it's a part of your body. So my feet are going and the yoke and the elevators are going and my hands on the throttle and the throttles and trying to keep the speed somewhere in a general range as we're just getting kicked and stuff. And as we came down, I just said, Lord, just give me a sweet spot. Just give me a sweet spot right there over the runway so we can get these people on their way and I can see my family. And so sure enough, we came down right over the runway. Sure enough, boom, totally smooth. And we were able to I went into the flare, squeaked the jet on, eased the thrust reversers in, gently applied the brakes, and as we were turning off the runway, you could hear everybody clapping and cheering and hooting in the back. And the captain got on the PA and, oh my gosh, that was my first officer, Laura, she did a great job. And I was so excited. We're able to get into the gate and walk up that jetway and see my family who didn't know what was going on, but came in, got to hug them and see them, and all the passengers were pointing and hugging me and cheering me. That's her, that's her. And so for just a couple minutes, I got to be a hero that day for the passengers and for my family. So that was fantastic. So gemstone number 5 is love. So I have a saying I always use for myself: no fear, only love. A lot of times people will act the way they do out of fear. So you want to ask them or ask yourself, what is it about this situation or this thing that might be a trigger that's making you fearful? And you have to not let that hold you back. Do not let fear hold you back. You got to push through it, especially when you're trying to be leading with goodness and righteousness and trying to achieve your goals to, in a positive kind of a way. And then the love part is to just always kind of lead with love and kindness and goodness. And when we do those little things like smile and reach out and just make that little effort, those little efforts add up and it makes such a big difference, and sometimes even literally can save people's lives. I've seen that. So we always want to believe in ourselves, believe in our strength, and just know that we want to set an example and pave the way for those coming up behind us, just as people who came before us paved the way for us. So I just want to thank you so much. I wish everybody blue skies and smooth rides, and catch me on the social medias and CaptainLaura.com, and I hope to see you on board soon. Thank you.